Hi, everybody. It's Gail again. I wanted to do a video just based on my experience with my diagnosis of bipolar 1 disorder. I was diagnosed in 2009 when I was 8 months pregnant with my daughter, which is part of my story. So 2009 was my diagnosis date. However, my family and my friends believed that there were a lot of red flags that were going up before then, that maybe there were some behaviors that couldn't have been explained before my diagnosis, but make more sense now that I have my diagnosis. Let me first start out by saying I've been in some kind of therapy or another since I was 11 years old. I lost a friend when I was 11. She was my best childhood friend, and I lost her a couple days after my 11th birthday, about 2 weeks before Christmas. And I had a really hard time with it. And that was my first introduction to therapy. So I've been in therapy, in and out of therapy, and currently in therapy since I was 11, and I'm now 41. So the better part of 30 years in and out of therapy. So let's see. Had a normal childhood. I think I wasn't either excessively happy or excessively sad. I think I was on a pretty even keel for a long time until eighth grade hit. I think with the hormones and the puberty and all that stuff, I kind of hit a little bit of a low point. And I think if you were to ask somebody, if you were to ask my mother, say perhaps my mother or a family member, that this was a little bit of a dark time for me, but not nearly as bad as things were going to get later on as high school progressed. Eighth grade was kind of a little bit of a turning point for me because I was a little bit sad, and I didn't really know why I felt the way that I felt, but I felt like it should have been something that I should have taken care of myself, and that I was in charge of, and that I was in control of, and that I didn't really trust what another therapist was going to say to me, because I had a horrible experience with the therapist that I saw after my friend died. So I didn't want to go back into therapy because of that. So I just kind of let all of that slide, and I slid into ninth grade at the top of my class. As ninth grade went on, things really started to change. I would just space out. I would dissociate. I would fall asleep because I would be so tired from the night before from not sleeping. I felt like I didn't need sleep. I felt like I didn't need a bedtime. And I'll give you an example of a time that scared the shit out of my parents. And this was probably one of those red flags that just went unnoticed at the time, and now makes more sense that I have this diagnosis. But we had this antique cedar chest that was up on four posts, four legs to the cedar chest by the back door. And I wanted to watch Saturday Night Live. And when I was 15, I had a bedtime. And I was standing next to the cedar chest, and my mom and I just kept going back and forth. No, I'm watching Saturday Night Live. You know, my favorite band is going to be on. They're going to be the musical guest. I got to watch this. I got to watch this. No, 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 no. I kept getting met with no. And finally, in my bare foot, I got so freaking mad that I just hauled off and I kicked the leg of that cedar chest, like with my bare foot, and it just cracked and like crumbled to the ground, and it just fell like with a sickening thud. And I'll never forget the look on my mother's face when I think she thought, what the are we dealing with here? Like, what is wrong with you? So that's, going along ninth grade. I would just get up from class, walk right out of class, right through the hallways, in and out of the bathroom, just walking around. I could not sit still. I was like a hyperactive child. I could not sit still. You could not get me in a classroom. And finally, I had one really good teacher. Thank you, Mr. Coleman, for setting me straight here. Didn't necessarily stop the hall walking stuff, but it got me to your class on time. I was walking through the hallways one time after homeroom and before first period, and first period bell had rung, and I was still outside walking around, and I had Mr. Coleman's math class, and I was in advanced math, and I wasn't smart enough to get to class on time, and this time he wasn't going to let me just scoot in with a hall pass or anything like that. He closed his door and he locked it. And I came up to the door and I tried to get in, and the door was locked, and I wasn't putting two and two together that he was locking me out. And all he did was point like this, point like that, because right across from his room was the principal's office. So that was where I was headed, and I had a nice talking to by the principal and the assistant principal to try to get me on track, because, like I said, I came from being in the top 10 of my class to the end of ninth grade being in really, really, really bad shape, dude. Like failing 5 classes at the end of the year. Oh, yeah. It was bad. Ninth grade just went by in a blur. I fought with my parents nonstop. I felt like I had a complete personality change, and I was not growing. So my mom took me to the doctor because she's a nurse, and she just suspected something was going on. And they did blood work, and they did find that I had Graves' disease. And Graves' disease is hyperthyroidism. So it's when your thyroid is overactive, which is why I wasn't gaining any weight. I wasn't growing. I wasn't sleeping. My thyroid stimulating hormone was really, really low, which meant that my thyroid was really, really overactive. And I ended up rolling into 10th grade, having to have my thyroid radioactively ablated, which means that I took a pill, an radioactive iodine pill, and it was supposed to destroy my thyroid, because my thyroid was I was going into what's called thyroid storm, where my thyroid was just spewing hormone, and I was becoming toxic. My eyes were even kind of starting to bug a little bit. I almost had like the thyroid eye disease. And so it was just really, really scary. And my pulse, my heart was racing. It was like over 120 beats a minute almost all the time. And I couldn't sleep. Going back to the sleep thing, I always come back to sleep when it comes to my mania. Whenever it comes to my mania, I always go back to sleep. How much sleep am I getting? How much am I not getting? It's a huge source of anxiety for me. But we'll get back to that in another video or another time. So I could not go to school. I could not go to school anymore. And so I had to basically bid my friends farewell, and I had to be homeschooled. And I had to be tutored by somebody who could accommodate my schedule, because I was very, very sick. I was only 15, and I had to say goodbye to the rest of high school, basically. I didn't know it then, but that was basically when I left ninth grade, that was the end of high school for me. That's about as much of a high school experience as I had, as other people have. 4 years, I had to pack it all into one. But it was a very sad time because I was not talking to my friends at the time. Uh, they were not talking to me, and I don't blame them for it now. I was upset for a long time about it, but it was in that time, it was sort of an out of sight, out of mind type scenario. And so I can't blame them for it because I suppose I probably would have been the same way if the tables were turned and I was the one in school and I had a friend who was out of school. I might not have been thinking about them either at the age of 15, 16 years old. You know, you're pretty egocentric at that time. Um, so 10th grade was really hard. And that was my first time uh, actually going on a medication for depression. I was treated for depression for the first time when I was 16, and I was suicidal. Um, I didn't see a way out of my problems, and I had a plan, and I told my parents, and I was hospitalized for the first time when I was 16. And it was like a one flew out of the cuckoo's nest type thing. People were walking up and down the halls, like talking to themselves, smoking. There was a smoking lounge there, like, which is crazy compared to uh, the behavioral health hospital that I stay at here if I have to go into the spa. Um, which I haven't had to for 3 years now. So knock on wood. Um, but anyway, getting back to ninth and 10th grade, I got through 10th grade, and from 11th grade onward, I pretty much just went to school when I felt good enough to go to school, and then my tutor would take over for the rest and put my assignments together, turn them in. And that little bit of interaction that I had, um, my junior and senior year were enough to get me through. But by then I had just had it with high school, and I was ready for college, and I was ready for more mature people, and I was ready for the next phase in my life because I was just done being in high school. I just wasn't made for high school. I loved it for a year when I was 15, but I was not made for high school. And I was to find out later that I don't really know if I was really made for college either. So, fast forwarding to college, I went to a small private college my first semester in Buffalo. Um, I didn't have a good experience there. I just didn't feel like myself. I had a really bad roommate. She was really disgusting. And I actually lived in an all girls dorm. So it was nice and clean and big and spacious and very new. And so, because I had sleep issues, still going back to sleep, still had sleep issues, I had actually a note that would basically say, you know, this girl needs her own room because she has these sleep issues and she'll cause other people not to be able to sleep she if she lives with somebody else. So she's not really compatible with another person to live with as a roommate. So I actually got the other RA suite. And I had like my own bathroom with a bathtub and a shower, and like it was separate from my room. It was like a suite. It was like a little hotel room. It was really cool. And I had a really bad experience on campus, and I'm not going to talk about that right now, but I started getting really paranoid. I started feeling like people were following me. My brain was on hyper alert. I was hyper aware of everything that was going on around me. I hung out with some people that didn't have very good intentions, and I recognized that pretty early in the semester. So I pretty much spent the rest of the semester going to class and coming straight back to the dorm, putting on music, taking a bath, like getting in the bathtub with a joint, just smoking like it was my job, and just basically floating through the first semester of my freshman year of college. And I did not go back. I didn't do so well that semester. And so I decided to go home because I just was not feeling like myself. I was still having depression, and I wasn't making any friends. The friends that I did make, like I said, I don't think their intentions were good, and so I didn't trust them anymore, and I didn't trust anybody anymore. So I thought that the best thing I could do was not waste any more money and come home. And I took a couple classes at the local community college. When I finally made the decision to go to Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania and go for art education, I made that decision with the intent of being close to somebody that was formerly in my life. So I can't say it was a decision based on the academic program that I wanted to go for. It was for something else. But long story short, first semester there, I bombed out, and with a 1.75 because I was off the rails. I was life of the party. All the partying was happening in my room. I had this whacked out roommate from the Netherlands who had her mother stay with us on my bedroom floor, my dorm room floor, for 2.5 weeks. And then a week later, she had her guy friend come and stay with us for a month. So me going to classes was not even an option because it was just party central in my room that whole semester. And you know what? I don't regret it a bit because I had the time of my life. It was worth it. That's all I'm going to say about that. But it was more red flags going up that, she can't calm down. She's got to take later classes because she's, not falling asleep until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and she can't sleep and she doesn't need sleep. And now I'm going to start shopping. So I actually applied for my first credit card my first semester at Edinburgh. And that's when I started my online shopping, which is one of the things that I do when I'm in a manic episode. I compulsively shop, and I hate it. It's awful. But we'll talk about that another time. That'll be another topic of discussion for another time. Right now, I just want to talk about my diagnosis and where I am today, just briefly where I am today. I met my husband in college, and we got married and moved to North Carolina, and we got pregnant, and I have systemic lupus, so I had a high risk pregnancy right to begin with, right off the bat. So I'll never forget, it was the day that Michael Jackson died. So it was June 25th, 2009, that I went to the high-risk OB, and I was starting to efface, so I had to go on strict bed rest. So I was basically told to lay on my left side the remainder of my pregnancy. And so that was the day that I went on bed rest, was the day that Michael Jackson died. Throughout the next 2 months, from June to July and August, till about the end of August, things started happening with my lupus. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't feeling well. I was dehydrated, and I passed out. And I finally had to have my husband take me to the emergency room. And they admitted me at Women and Children's Hospital here in my town. And they started an IV, and I remember it hurt so bad that they could not get an IV in me because I was so dehydrated. My veins were almost collapsed. They were almost collapsed. And so I was hospitalized, and it was determined that I was in a lupus flare, a pretty acute lupus flare. And I started not sleeping at all. And I didn't sleep for one night. And then one night turned into 2 nights, and two nights turned into 3 nights. 3 nights turned into 9 nights without sleep. Not 5 minutes of sleep, not 1 minute of sleep. By the 9th day, the middle of the day, all I could keep saying over and over was, I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. What's happening? I'm losing my mind. And I would have this thing where I would close my eyes and try to sleep. But every time I would close my eyes, I would envision myself. It was right around September 11th that this happened, but it was almost September 11th, because I would envision myself at the top of one of the towers falling off to the ground. So I couldn't close my eyes. I couldn't close my eyes to go to sleep because I was too terrified that that was going to happen to me. And I kept getting afraid of my mom flying home because I was terrified that something was going to happen to her plane, because she was flying back on September 11th. She had been with us for a week helping out while I was in the hospital, and she had to go home because she was still working at the time. And all I kept saying was, I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my mind. Like, nobody's listening to me. I don't know what's happening here. I'm seeing things over there. I'm hearing things in my head. And I remember accusing the nurses of putting meth in my IV because I thought I was having like a psychosis. And what was happening was I was having a psychosis. I was having a psychotic break. Midnight rolled around, and one of the nurses, I don't know why I remember all of this stuff so vividly, because it was otherworldly to me in the moment. But this nurse came in and she said, look, we know you're very physically ill right now, but we cannot take care of you anymore. You need to sign this. You need to go get help somewhere else. So I signed a release, and that was my release to be admitted for the first time into the behavioral health hospital here in my town for the first time for my disorder. That's my story of being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. It was determined later that it was bipolar disorder type 1. And later, I was diagnosed with being an ultra rapid cycler. So I have more than 4 episodes in a year. To be diagnosed with bipolar 1, I believe you have to have at least 4 manic episodes in 1 year's time. And I have one almost every month. So yeah, that's fun. I also have mixed episodes where I can be feeling both emotions at the same time. And that's really, really messed up. And I'm a rapid cycler, like I said, so my moods can shift daily, weekly, monthly. But I'm very happy to say that I have been on a certain treatment regimen right now for probably 8 weeks. And I haven't had to make any changes to my medication in 8 weeks. And so that's an incredible victory for me because I am such a rapid cycler that adjustments to my medicine are made very, very frequently. And the fact that I've been able to go 8 weeks without any changes to any of my medications is a huge accomplishment. So I thank my care team for bringing me to that place. So that's my story, and that's where I am today. And I'm sure we'll go back in history and kind of revisit some of the things that have brought me to this diagnosis. I know I talked a lot today, and I appreciate you listening, and I hope that we get to know each other better. And hit subscribe if you want. Hit like. I really look forward to working with you guys and seeing you guys here and seeing that my videos get watched and helping you and helping each other. So have a peaceful day and take care of each other because we're all we have.